astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. If you guys want your own natal chart reading or progress natal chart reading, the information for all of that is going to be in the description box below. You guys can go on my website underneath the readings tab, and then an email window is going to pop up, and from there you guys can send me an email and we will go from there. So welcome everyone. What should we talk about today? Astrology, metaphysics, natal charts, questions about your natal charts. Hey Katie, how are you doing? I see your message here. You said, did anyone see the fake news about the nightclub in New York City denying entry to Aries, saying majority of fights were started by Aries? Geminis will have to pay extra to get in. Okay, I saw that. Hey Concerned, how are you doing? Hey guys, how are you doing? I saw that. I was wondering if that was fake news because I was like, oh my gosh, this is so hardcore. What's up everybody? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. What should we talk about today, or any topics you guys would like to talk about today? We have started Mercury retrograde officially yesterday for the next 3 weeks. Hey, how you guys doing? I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, questions about your natal charts. If you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. So Rahu in the first house, that's your north node in the first. That means your south node is in the seventh. When I see this axis for people, usually what it says to me is your past life was a lot about other people. Maybe you sacrificed a lot of your wants, needs, and desires for the people around you, a relationship, what people wanted of you. You come through in this lifetime to focus on the self, to kind of think about who are you, what do you want to do in this lifetime, really figure out who you are at the core, and then kind of use the community around you. Obviously not use, but you know what I mean, take advantage of the people around you. They're going to help prop you up into your purpose in this lifetime. Welcome to all people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, and questions about your natal chart. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to comment below. Hey everyone, the eclipse is going to be, you said you're going to be there. How is it going to affect you? You're a Pisces. Where are you going to be? Okay, I was reading different things about the eclipse, just from the scientific perspective. Some people were saying you're not supposed to look at it. Other people were saying you need specific glasses to look at it. I don't know. I thought that was really, really interesting. But okay, in terms of the eclipse and astrology, it's going to be in Aries. So you guys want to see, where do you have Aries in your natal charts? You want to see what house you have Aries in. So it's going to be affecting that house. An eclipse is usually something coming to the surface, something being revealed to you, something you didn't see, an aspect of yourself, because it is on that Libra Aries axis. The eclipses overall, because we just had another one, is about interpersonal relationships versus the self. So that's kind of the overall theme, because it's on that axis of the self and interpersonal relationships. But for you specifically, you want to see what house is it going to be going through, and that's going to give you more information. Welcome to all people joining. I'm answering astrology questions, metaphysical questions, and questions about your natal charts. No, I didn't do a video on eclipse per sign. I don't do videos like that where I do the predictive aspect of things. I just tell you guys basically you want to see what house you have that sign in and what does that house mean, and then it's going to tell you what is going to be happening for that particular energy. So the eclipse is something being revealed to you. First house is going to be the house of the self. Second house could be something to do with money, your belief systems around money. That's kind of the overall idea. You said the solar eclipse is conjuncting your natal Saturn, and that's another thing too. Also, even if you watch those videos where they do the predictions, those are very, very general, and it's based off of what I just told you guys. So they kind of go through the houses and they say kind of generally what it means. But it's going to be different for different people. Anytime there's any sort of transit, you want to look at everything that's taking place in your natal chart, because there could be energies counteracting it. So it's going to be general, whatever anybody says. It's kind of I guess you can look at it for fun, take it with a grain of salt, basically. Let's see. You said a solar eclipse is conjuncting your natal Saturn and Aries in the 12th house. How is that going to influence you? Okay, your 12th house, so that's your unconscious or your subconscious. So something's going to be coming to the surface during this time about your unconscious or your subconscious. Maybe you're going to have enemies revealed to you that were masking themselves, because that's that 12th house. Maybe there's going to be unconscious beliefs that you had that are going to come to the surface. It's going to be a huge purge. I can already feel it coming, because a lot of people are tuned in right now, and they're all waiting for it. And also there's all the hype, especially if you're in North America, in terms of actually seeing it and it being dark outside and all these types of things. So I feel it's going to be intense energetically, just because a lot of people are feeding into it energetically. I hope that makes sense. So it's if you're more clairsentient, you're going to feel into it. more. But overall, like, it's going to be a change. It's going to be a shift. Like, I do feel like a lot of people are just going to be purging. Like, that's really what eclipses are about. All of these things are always purging junk. It's stuff coming from the bottom to the surface. I use the Placidus Tropical System. Oh, nice, Nicole. Okay, so you are in the States. Yeah, I heard that they're closing schools in some places. So it's going to be really interesting. I'm curious to see like what ends up happening. That's going to be next Monday, the 8th. Okay, so Aquarius Sun in the 12th house, Capricorn Moon, 11th house. So your moon is in the 11th house, and then your Pisces rising. So Aquarius Sun, Capricorn Moon, and then Pisces rising. That is all in that quadrant. That's kind of like the psychic / intuitive quadrant. So the Capricorn Moon might be a little bit more grounding for you, but it's in that 11th house. So it's like, it's claircognizant. Like, that's how I see the 11th house. So I see everything from Scorpio onwards, psychic and intuitive in its own way. So Aquarius is like intuitive in terms of innovation, ideas, like they're claircognizant, like they're a little bit out of body in this way where they're like thinking about things or like humanitarian issues. That's kind of like that Aquarius energy. So it's your moon. So that's just what's happening on an emotional level. Okay, that's what the moon is all about. Also friends, that's the 11th house as well. Groups of friends, friendships, like connecting with people, like that's all going to be super important to you. Like that's emotionally fulfilling for you. The sun in the 12th is an absence of a father figure early on in life. A lot of the time, sun in the 12th has people, especially the earlier part of your life, like you might not know who you are. You might do a lot of like personality tests, even astrology or readings or whatever it is to like try to figure out who you are to get a sense of self. It's usually stemming from the absence of the father figure. So the father figure could have been mentally, emotionally, or physically absent. Like maybe he was there, but maybe he was checked out, for example, or maybe he was working all the time, or maybe he actually wasn't physically there. So that's that sun and the 12th house energy. And usually sun and the 12th, I find that they have like a lot of karma to clear with a lot of people. Now, also, what's interesting with the 12th house is going to tell you like people who might be your hidden enemies, because that's the house of hidden enemies as well. So when you have the sun in here, it could be the father, but it could be just like so covert and hidden. Do you know what I mean? And then throughout your life, it could perpetuate into other masculine roles as well. So it's this. Welcome to everyone joining. How are you guys doing? You're welcome. You said you have Aries stellium in the 12th house and you have to fly that day. Yeah, that's why I'm wondering, like I couldn't get like a clear answer because I was like, okay, people are saying not to look at it, but can you be outside? Do you know what I mean? Like if you're flying, you're gonna be in the sky. So is the pilot gonna like see it? Like, or are they gonna have to wear special glasses? Because like the glasses that they were talking about online, they said like that they're like so intense, like they're stronger than sunglasses. So it's like you kind of see it as like a little dot. So yeah, that's, I don't know, there's just so many questions. You said Venus conjunct Neptune on your ascendant. You said it's not comfortable. You're crying, you're laughing, you're confident, you're depressed. Will you feel pretty again when Venus gets in your first house, or is it your Mercury that's doing that? Yeah. So when you guys go through the progression into Venus in the first house, yes, you might have like more of like a focus on your appearance, or just like maybe you do your hair a certain way, your makeup a certain way, like you dress like a certain way. You know what I mean? Like things that make you more attractive. So that could definitely be a thing. Now the Venus conjunct Neptune is a struggle in terms of your relationships. Yes, because you don't see the people clearly, you see them through rose-colored glasses, and you basically kind of see them from like their higher self level, like not who they actually are in the physical plane and in the physical reality. Now, Venus conjunct Neptune, these people are always the types of people who are like looking for the one or like an ideal partner. Like they're always gonna like be interested in like soulmates and twin flames and like these types of things, you know? So it's like because of this, it's interesting, the Venus and the Venus conjunct Neptune. What's interesting for these people, it's like they can actually spend extended periods of time single because like the people that they're meeting, they're not, you know, meeting this like idealized standard that they have in their mind. So there's this, but also if you're in a relationship, then like you might put a lot of just like, you know, annoyance, let's say on your partner, because they're also not living up into this idealized vision that you have in your mind of either the relationship or like who the person should be, or like they're not matching up in terms of like how you see them. So it's interesting, like that energy can really spend like a lot of time in the crown chakra, like dreaming and daydreaming. You can get sucked into tarot readings and like, you know, those like videos that they post and they're like, this person is gonna do this, and they're like always like telling a story. Like that's all like the Neptunian, Venusian, Neptune in the 7th, Neptune in the 5th, Pisces in the 7th, Pisces in the 5th, like all of those energies can get sucked into that, and it can essentially waste a lot of time if you think about it. So you said old tribes say not to stare at the eclipse, and you said you trust the ancient advice. Yes. Let's see, I'm just going back up. Oh my gosh, you're so funny, concerned. You're so funny. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. You said Aries in the first, something about you will come to the surface. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so, okay, quick rundown. I'll give you guys a quick rundown because, like, again, you have to look like more in depth, okay? So if you have Aries in your first, this is for the solar eclipse. If you have Aries in your first, something about yourself, your personality is gonna come to the surface, okay? Something like you're uncovering maybe a new personality trait, a new talent. Maybe you're gonna be interested in going to the gym, like something like this. Maybe you wanna switch up, you know, like the way you look, like that's first house, okay? Second house is gonna be about your money, about your belief systems around money. That's the second house. The third house is going to be, and also maybe self-worth with the second house as well, okay? Maybe like you have this like realization, oh my gosh, like, you know, there's something that I didn't see clearly in terms of my self-worth connected to my money or my finances, or like this type of investment, or I should invest into this, or like this investment isn't working for me, like stuff like this, okay? Second house types of things. If you have Aries in the second. Aries in the third, okay, is going to be your siblings. It's going to be maybe your cousins. It's going to maybe be like your community, like your friends. Maybe it's going to be something to do with technology, maybe social media, like all these things. Something comes to the surface. Maybe you use this or like figure out a different way. Your speech, your communication. Maybe you realize during the eclipse, oh my gosh, I haven't been communicating clearly, but I thought I was communicating clearly. Like it's uncovering something about you, okay? And maybe it's gonna be a person who shows you this, okay? That's that third house. Fourth house is your family. So it's gonna be about your home. It's going to be about your emotional world, your inner world. That's the fourth house. So if you have Aries in your fourth house, maybe something comes to the surface about something happening in your emotional world that you didn't necessarily see before, or something about the home, or something to do with your family, or like maybe some sort of like internalized belief system that you've internalized from the home or the family. Fourth house, okay? Fifth house is your creativity. So it's gonna be your creativity, your inner child. If you have children, maybe something about them, or if it's your inner child, then something like maybe you didn't get to express it and now you're like, okay, now you're inspired. Something that's like purged out of your system. You guys have to look at you have to look at it like this, okay? You're purging something out of your system. That's our fifth house. Then sixth house is health, healing, being of service. So maybe during this time you purge something about this world, health, healing, and being of service. Maybe something to do with your own health. Maybe you like start a new diet, or like you figure out a new like, you know, specific diet that works for you, or maybe you decide to go to the gym. Something like this, okay? And also it's your daily acquaintances. So maybe something about your coworkers, maybe something about your work comes to the surface. Maybe you're all of a sudden like, I'm not interested in this job anymore. I want to do this one now, or I want to shift my career. It could be something like this, for example, with that sixth house, or switching up your routine. Okay, like every day I do Pilates and I go to the gym and I do knitting class, like whatever, right? You're like, okay, let's switch it up. Like that's an eclipse, right? And sometimes it's gonna kind of just like be switched up for you. Do you know what I mean? Like maybe all of a sudden your class gets canceled and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I do? But then because it's canceled, you do something else. So it's something like this, right? And then you discover like a new passion or a new hobby. So that's that sixth house. Seventh house is your relationship. So people who have Aries in the seventh house, it'll show you something about your relationships. Maybe something comes to the surface about how you view relationships, or somebody in your life, or something of the sort, okay? Anything to do with your friends, maybe like something comes to the surface, or like an attachment style, or like how you are in relationships, something about you. Because that's another thing too, okay? The seventh house is also going to show you your shadow sometimes, because usually relationships are mirroring this back to us. So maybe that's what's going to happen if you have Aries in the seventh house. That's going to be the Libra risings, okay? Next, eighth house, maybe something about your sexuality, maybe something about your debts, for example, or maybe you get a business loan, or maybe all of a sudden you get inspired to get some kind of loan, or you want a loan to like go back to school, like whatever it is, something like this, okay? Other people's money, other people's resources and money, secrets, addictions, all these things. So maybe something secretive comes to the surface. Maybe someone like around you was being snaky and shady, and all of a sudden they get exposed during the eclipse. That's the eighth house. Ninth house is going to be the higher mind, philosophies, anything to do maybe with religions or something of the sort. Maybe you think of a new idea, or maybe you see like some sort of belief system that was like restricting you from moving forward. You shut it, okay? You release it. You release this belief system. That's what's going to be shown to you. 10th house is your career, your public image. So maybe in terms of, you know, your career, you decide to switch it up, for example, or something happens with your job, or you get a new job, or something like this, okay? So it could be this. Something of this sort is getting purged, okay, in terms of your public image. Maybe you were presenting yourself a certain way. Maybe it wasn't authentic, for example. And now you're like, okay, I wasn't being myself. I wasn't being true to myself. And it gets maybe reflected back to you, for example. That's kind of how it works, okay? Then we have the 11th house. That's your friendships, your groups of friends. It's also the higher mind in terms of like ideas, innovation, AI, tech, the fashion industry. Sometimes I see that as 11th house as well. Maybe during this eclipse, you get some sort of new idea, okay, in terms of like, oh, okay, this is an invention that I want to do, or this is an app that I want to start, or this type of startup, or whatever it is. That's kind of what it is. Or something gets cleared out of your way so you can get that new idea to come through. That's kind of how it works, okay? And then the 12th house, like I mentioned, is your hidden enemies, your unconscious, your subconscious. Maybe something like, again, maybe you were spending a lot of time in your crown chakra and it's like the eclipse is like, okay, time to come back down to earth. Like, we're going to ground you back down. Like something kind of like shocks you, for example. Again, I'm not speaking these things into existence. This is the overall idea, and you have to look at the transits and everything, okay? So that's kind of how it works. So anytime there's anything that's taking place in terms of, let's say even Mercury retrograde, right? Mercury retrograde is also going to retrograde for you through that specific house that it's in. You guys want to see what is the transit, what sign is it in, where do you have that sign in your chart, and then you'll have an overall idea of like what house is going to be affecting in your natal chart. So that's for everybody. That's how you guys can do it for yourselves. So anytime there's something happening, Saturn going through this, so Saturn's going to be going through a specific house for you. If it's in, like right now, it's going through Pisces, so you want to see where do you have Pisces in your natal chart. It's going to go through that house, okay? So that's kind of how it works. Now, in terms of like your own personalized charts, you want to look at everything, right? Because like one thing is just like, you can look at it as like for fun. You know, we're looking at it for fun, just like an idea, an overall idea. That's kind of how it works. You're welcome. You said, speaking of a house and religion, you listened to an interesting radio program last night about modern occultism. The guest explained about nature-based religion and hidden things we're changing. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy we are. What radio show did you watch or listen to? I'm just going back up. Chiron in Gemini in the 6th house. Okay, so how is Chiron in Gemini in the 6th house? And you said related to your North Node in Aries in the 3rd house. You have Chiron in Gemini in the 6th, and then your North Node is in Aries in the 3rd. So the North Node is on that axis of people and yourself, right? That's that Aries Libra axis. So this lifetime for you, okay, you always want to look at the South Node, which is in Libra, and it's in the 9th house. So the way that I see South Node is like maybe you mastered it. This is how I see it these days. Maybe you mastered it, but you didn't get to complete it. So you're coming through in this lifetime to kind of have a different approach with the knowledge that you already mastered. So in a past life, maybe you mastered some sort of like higher mind, belief system, maybe some sort of religion, whatever it was, but it was in Libra. So maybe something took place here where you weren't able to fully express it because of the people around you. Maybe it was because of a relationship. Maybe you didn't have the resources. Maybe you were dependent on someone. Maybe it was because of your friends. Maybe it was because of the family, whatever it was, okay? So something like this, something with your interpersonal relationships maybe did not allow you to fully express that 9th house. So you come through in this lifetime with Aries, and it's in the 3rd house. So it's like this lifetime for you is about speaking, written or spoken word, but now you're communicating the 9th house ideas in a 3rd house type of way. So maybe it's going to be a little bit more, you know, like down to earth for people to understand, like the everyday person to understand. It could be this, right? Or maybe it's a little bit more funny, or it's like, you know, you kind of have this like twist on it where it's like the everyday person can now understand. Like that's kind of the vibe and the idea with the 3rd house. Now, also, with the 3rd house, it's like this lifetime for you is all about communities. It's all about the people around you, like building a community. It's like, you know, the 3rd house, let's say when you have it in your North Node, you can become well known, let's say in your town. This could be like a mayor, or you have a dance studio, or maybe you're a Pilates instructor. I don't know, I keep using the example of Pilates, but whatever, yoga instructor. Maybe you do some sort of specific class, and it's like you kind of like hone in on that niche. It could be this, but 9th house, right? So you're still teaching something like higher, right? Like a higher idea, higher mind, wisdom, all these types of things. Now, Chiron and Gemini in the 6th house, you're healing through that. So it's interesting because it's in Gemini. So it's like for you, speaking, communicating, sharing, networking, having friends, having the network, like is a healing experience for you. That's kind of how it works. And the 6th house is like your daily routines. So it's like when you have a specific routine, it's healing for you. That's kind of how Chiron works. Like you're healing through that. Oh my gosh, concerned. I literally knew it was Coast to Coast AM. That's why I asked you. I literally knew it was Coast to Coast AM. I just couldn't think of the name. Okay, so Coast to Coast AM. So shout out to my dad, because when he would pick me up from work, because I used to work in retail back in the day, and he would pick me up from work, that was always playing on the radio. So we would always listen to like all the metaphysical types of things together. So yeah, I literally knew it was coast to coast. Oh my gosh, I love it. I haven't heard it in a while. I heard a recent episode online because you can also listen to them online. But yeah, you have to like pay for the membership if you're gonna listen to them online. But this was like actually like on the radio, like the AM, like I can't remember what like station it was on. But yeah, so I used to work like the evening shift, and like every time I finished work, my dad would pick me up and it would be on the radio. So we'd always be listening to something metaphysical. So it's interesting because it's like I actually have a video on my YouTube channel. I think it was like, how did I get into astrology? And like, I kind of mentioned it in there. Like, I didn't mention the radio show, but I was saying how we would listen to like a specific radio show when I was like getting picked up from work. So that's my story on that. Let's see, what else are you guys saying in here? Sun, moon. So he said Scorpio, sun, moon, and Mercury. So you have Scorpio, sun, moon, and Mercury. That's a lot of Scorpio energy. Is it conjunct? I'm curious to know. Yes, I already talked about the eclipse. The eclipse is next Monday. So if you're interested, you guys want to go back in the video. I talked about it maybe like 2-3 minutes ago. Okay, Scorpio, sun, moon, and Mercury. So Scorpio, sun, moon, that's really intense. When I see the same sign in the sun and the moon, that usually says to me that the mom and the dad were like on the same page in terms of like raising you. So maybe they were both emotionally unavailable, because Scorpio sun can be the dad, the moon can be the mom. I've noticed a lot of Scorpio suns, they're interested in things like Muay Thai or like boxing or like something like an individualistic type of sport, because like Scorpio has a lot of just like energy, right? Usually sexual energy. So it's like when the sexual energy doesn't have an outlet. So whether that's through physical activity or you go into the gym or you being creative and all these types of things, it goes in, okay? So then these people can be angry, they can be aggressive. So I've seen Scorpios, and like Scorpio used to be ruled by Mars too, so it kind of makes sense. But I've seen them in these types of like individualistic types of sports though, where it's kind of like just them. Because Scorpio is not really like a let's work like with a team type of energy. It's more like, you know, I'm gonna do it my way and my thing, right? That's Scorpio sun. So I've seen a few Scorpio suns, and I've noticed that Scorpio sun, like the father could have either been emotionally unavailable or just like aggressive, and Scorpio moon, the mother could have been like emotionally unavailable as well, or like manipulative, or just like going through something when you were growing up. The home life could have been intense overall for Scorpio moon, and then Scorpio Mercury, you're like 10 steps ahead. So it's like with Scorpio energy, what tends to happen is like if you've gone through some, and like everyone's gone through something throughout their life, but usually like Scorpios, like something happens where it's like they're shot at a body that basically creates them to be hypervigilant. That's the thing with the Scorpionic energy. So it's like when you have it in the Mercury, it's like you're always thinking of every possible scenario for everything. You know, it's like, oh, especially if you kind of get like triggered into that survival mode. So if something's happening, let's say like different things happen for different people, but like let's say like the feeling is creeping around, right? Where it's like, you know, you might be going into that same moment of whatever like the trauma moment was, right? And by the way, I'm not a psychologist, that's my disclaimer, just observations. So when you're kind of going into that energy, right, you're already going into this hypervigilance where you're like, okay, like if I do it like this, then this can happen. If I do it like that, then that can happen. If I do it this way, like, you know, and it's like that can waste a lot of mental energy. It can be so draining, right? Where it's like, if Scorpio is in the divine version and you've transmuted that, then you can use that energy literally to be psychic, because then you're like 10 steps ahead, but like in the psychic plane. So you said apparently it's okay, this was for the flight because it's at noon and you fly early, and you said, yeah, between Mercury retrograde and that you're extra nervous. So don't be nervous. I mean, it just like is what it is. You know what I mean? I did travel, what year was it? I think 2022. I traveled during Mercury retrograde, and I think I only had one delay, and I had so many different like buses, travel, plane. So like you can't live in fear, you know what I mean? If you have to go, you have to go. Like that's the whole, like, this is why I don't do like the predictive readings either, because it's like a lot of the time when people are looking for predictive types of readings, it's coming from like a fear-based type of place. And it's like you can't mentally prepare yourself for everything, because it's like even if you mentally prepare yourself for everything, and this is for like the Scorpio energy too, so it might resonate with you guys as well, it's like you're still gonna be surprised. Do you know what I mean? So it just is what it is. It's nice to know, but it's like if you're planning your life around everything, then you're living in a box, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, like sometimes certain things are just gonna happen regardless, like whether you're prepared for it or not. Let's see. You're welcome. You said, how does one balance a 12th house stellium in Pisces with no planets in 6th house Virgo? Oh, that's a lot. So you're probably super psychic. Super, super psychic with, you want to know what my sun and moon are? Let's see if you can guess. If you guys know, don't tell the other people. Let's see if you can guess my sun and moon and maybe even rising. Okay, so for the 12th house stellium and Pisces, you're probably super psychic, super intuitive, but you're probably also like always in the ethers. So you're gonna have to figure out how to ground. I have a video on my YouTube channel. It's called How to Stay Grounded as a 12th house person. There's like, I go over just like a few ideas of things you guys can do if you have all that 12th house energy going on in there, because you're just always in the ethers is really what that is. Like you're always out of body. And also like you see things through that rose colored lens is really what that is. So that could affect every area of life. And it's interesting because it's like, I don't know, it's like, it's really interesting to see because it's like, you know, whatever we envision for ourselves, like we do have the ability to create, absolutely, but it's like with the Piscean 12th house energy, it's just in the ethers, it's not acting on it, if that makes sense. So when you have all that 12th house energy, you have to figure out like, how can I go about, you know, anchoring this is really what that is. Like, let's say some form of idea, you know, and especially like in law of attraction and like all these things these days, they just say like, oh, visualize and feel into the emotion. Like that's very Piscean, but it's like, you still have to figure out how can you anchor it, you know what I mean? Like figure out a practical way. So you have to look at Virgo. That's what it is. Like anytime you guys have like an excess of something in your chart, look at the oppositional energy. So what would Virgo do? Virgo would sit down and be like, okay, this is my plan. I'm going to create like this like schedule for myself and I'm going to stick to it. Like I do think that you can balance the energy within yourself. You're just going to have to work harder because the natural energy within you is Pisces. It's 12th house. It's to be in the ethers and in the psychic realms and in the metaphysical realms and these types of things, right? And especially like if you have some sort of big dream, which all Piscean 12th house people do, you just have to figure out a way to anchor it is really what that is. So like discipline is Virgo, having a schedule, you know, practice makes perfect, like constantly working at that thing. And that's another thing for Pisces too. Pisces wants to do everything. That's the whole thing. And it's like, you can't do everything. You want to start with one thing. So if you're a Pisces 12th house stellium, if it's music, do just music. If you want to be a psychic, just be a psychic. If you want to do astrology, just do astrology. You know what I mean? Like do the one thing and then you can branch off. You kind of have to look at like, you know, the way the world is, right? It's like in terms of like companies and brands, like they all start out with one thing and then they eventually branch off. So it's this. Aquarius moon, no, but thank you. Actually, I do have my 4th house in Aquarius, so you're not too far off. Okay, I'll tell you. So, because I'm probably going to forget by the time I get back down to the bottom. So, I'm a Libra sun, Libra rising. My sun is in the 12th house. My moon is in Scorpio. My moon is in Scorpio. It's in the 1st house. So, there's that. And then my 4th house is Aquarius. So, yes. Oh my gosh, and one of you guys said Scorpio sun and moon. Yeah, you guys weren't too far off. Yes, you guys are picking up on the Scorpio vibes. That's awesome. Sending you guys good vibes too. You're welcome. Happy birthday. You said, can you please discuss moon conjunct Jupiter in the 5th house and Sagittarius? You said you also have the sun ruled out chart. Okay, so moon conjunct Jupiter in the 5th house and Sag. So this is a very spiritual placement actually, because Jupiter is like the spiritual teacher and then the moon, right? It's like your emotional world. So you could also be very intuitive and psychic as well, especially because it's in the sign of Sag. The 5th house is going to be super creative. So anytime you have moon, you know, conjuncting anything, it's like you have to be in emotional alignment with that particular thing, if that makes sense. So like Jupiter is money and abundance, right? So for you to make money and abundance and like take advantage of the Jupiter energy, the moon, right? You have to be like emotionally fulfilled and happy. That's the thing with like moon conjunctions, you know what I mean? Especially like even if you have like moon conjunct North Node, for example, then it's like you have to like your purpose in life, right? Like you have to be in like emotional alignment with it, if that makes sense. Like it has to be something that you love, you know? That's kind of how like the moon works. So it's like, if in terms of anything in this world, like in terms of like, especially if it's like more artistic, like moon, right? If it's more artistic or like feeling based, like you have to get in tune with the emotions, right? So to do that, you have to clear anything that might be holding you back emotionally. So you're welcome. Scorpio gotta be Scorpio sting by get security by quote unquote attacking. Yeah, Scorpio is definitely a stinger. It's like, It's really interesting to see. It's really interesting to see because they're gonna be like chilling. It depends. It depends how evolved they are, right? Like they're gonna be chilling, but if they feel threatened, yeah, the stinger is gonna come out. You guys almost flew away from me. Okay, let me just go back up to see what else were you guys saying in here. You said, will you do a video on how different Venus signs moves towards their crush? Okay, I can do that for you guys. Let me screenshot that. I'll add it to my list. Let's see if you guys have any other ideas, let me know. I'll screenshot it and add it to my list. I'm glad you guys enjoy the channel. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for the likes, shares, and subscribes. And if you guys want your own readings, natal chart reading or progressed natal chart reading, it's going to be on my website in the description box below. You said, do you know what it means when a person is missing Leo and Aquarius because those houses are intercepted, or missing Aries and Libra? Okay, yes. So in terms of interceptions, when you're missing an energy, right? The energy is swallowed up in your natal chart. So for example, the individual that was saying that they think I have an Aquarius moon, like for me, Aquarius is intercepted, right? So I have Capricorn in the 4th house, and then I have Aquarius also intercepted in the 4th house, right? So it's like the energy is creeping behind the shadows. So it depends like what kind of energy you go into, right? Like it can either come through at strange times. Like I feel like as you grow, you kind of embrace more of that energy. And also if you go through secondary progressions, you might come out of the interception as well. So there's that aspect of it as well, where you can come out of the interception eventually when you go through the secondary progressions. But when you're unaware, what happens is like the energy is either suppressed or it comes through at strange times. So like for this person, right? In your particular case, that's missing Aries and Libra, right? For them, the access that's intercepted is like the access of other people and of the self, right? So in terms of like, let's say relationships, they might be like overly selfish, for example, because like you're trying to balance the energy. When you're trying to balance the energy within you, it can go into any of these directions is really what that is, where it's like it can go into the extreme, maybe being overly selfish, or maybe not knowing how to focus on the self with the Libra energy in there. Maybe being like afraid of being alone, always looking for a relationship. So that's kind of how it works. Like maybe that person's going to be super indecisive, for example. I've noticed that Aries energy can be indecisive. Absolutely. That's kind of how it works. I do have a video on my YouTube channel. It's under the miscellaneous playlist if you guys want to learn more about interceptions, because I'm pretty sure I go over all of the signs that are intercepted and what that could potentially mean in your overall natal chart. And then you're going to have double of another energy as well. Okay. Hey, how are you guys doing? Yes, Libra, Sun, and family. So interesting. I was actually just thinking today, because I was saying to someone, there's so much to say about Libra ascendants because there's so much going on with that energy, right? First of all, everything is in the opposite house. And then also on top of that, like if we were to do an analysis, because I already did like all the rising signs, but like I'm sure now I could go even more in depth, because it's like there's just so much to say. Because when you look at the rising, if it's not intercepted, then you're gonna have like Libra rising, your descendant is gonna be an Aquarius, your 4th house is gonna be Capricorn, and then your midheaven is gonna be in Cancer. Like that's gonna tell you a lot about the person, the Libra rising person. Then your 2nd house is in Scorpio. Like you can do that for all of the rising signs, which I kind of touched on. Like I kind of touched on when I did the rising sign series, but like I'm sure now I would have like even more to say. But there's just always so much to say overall. I'm just going back up. You said, can I let you know Leo sun, Scorpio moon, Aries rising, how will you do in this era? Okay, so your Leo sun, Scorpio moon, Aries rising. Okay, Scorpio moon's hardcore overall. Scorpio moon's hardcore. And then I'm curious to know if you're in Aries rising, is your A house in Scorpio? And then I'm also curious to know then is your moon, which is in Scorpio, also in the A house? So yes, so Aries rising, usually these people are starting a new cycle for themselves on that soul level, okay, is really, really what that is. So it's like you're coming through, you're meant to step away from just like an old type of pattern in terms of your identity. So that could, you know, entail maybe stepping away from what the family wants from you, or just like overall maybe certain expectations of you for an Aries rising, okay? Aries anywhere in the big three, but it's the rising, so it's the first house. So you're basically starting a new cycle for yourself in terms of like the overall lifetime on that soul level. So that's Aries rising, okay? Leo sun is the entertainer. Like they're grand, they're here to be seen, they're funny, they're charming. And it's interesting because it's like you now have that Scorpio moon creeping behind the shadows. So it's like this energy could be like very fiery, for example, and then beneath the surface, there's all this scorpionic energy that's taking place when you have a Scorpio moon. That's the thing. And you also want to look at your fourth house too. Because if you're an Aries rising, let me know what your fourth house is. I'm curious to know because that means your descendant is in Libra. And then, hold on, first house is in Aries, your fourth house would be in Cancer if it's not intercepted. So that's double of that water energy. So that's gonna say a lot about the type of upbringing you have. But let me know, are you still in the room? I'm just gonna go to the bottom. But yes, for anybody, like anytime you guys look at your moon, you want to look at the fourth house to see how is that moon operating. And then obviously you want to look at the aspects as well to see even more. But overall, Scorpio moon is intense. I have two videos actually. One when I first started doing my moon sign series, which is so long ago. That's the only one that I left up from like the older videos because I redid a lot of my videos. But yeah, so Scorpio moon, there's always so much more to say. Like I could record a whole new one now and probably have even more information on like the Scorpio moon because the moon is your home, it's your fourth house. Well, it's not your fourth house, but it's your home. Like it's that energy of like the mother or the home or the upbringing and like how the home could have been for a Scorpio moon. So usually it's intense. It's usually like very like turbulent. There's usually, it depends, right? Sometimes like I've heard people say like, you know, who have Scorpio moons, they say that they haven't necessarily had like a bad relationship with the mother, but you also want to see like what's happening with the mother's moon sign as well, right? So there's so much, there's just so much going on. But overall, regardless, like, and if it's not the mother, dominant feminine role in your life, grandma, so on and so forth. But regardless, like Scorpio moon is psychic, it's intuitive, it's feeling based. Everything for you is like, I feel, right? You'd probably express yourself in this way too. I feel like this, or I feel like this is a bad idea, or I feel like this person gives me bad vibes. Like that's Scorpio moon. And then you could also be a medium as well. Let's see. One of you guys asked how I learned astrology. Well, in terms of learning astrology, you can learn it anywhere, really. You can read books because like you have the general signs, right, for everybody. So you have to learn like the placements first, right? Like what are the planets and so on and so forth, what all of that means. And you have to learn all of the signs in there. And then you have to learn all of the houses. So you're learning 12 of everything. You can learn that literally anywhere, right? The way that I learned it was I would learn a particular placement and then I would look at how does this energy get expressed in a person either that I know or a public figure. That's how I learned it. So I feel into the energy. So even when I'm recording my videos for you guys, I'm usually feeling into the energy. Like what does this feel like is really what that is. So that's kind of where it comes from. Like I think anybody can do astrology. You have different types of astrologers. Some people are super by the book. For me, it's more feeling based, right? Even when I do your natal charts, like I feel into the chart, right? Because I feel into the energy. So now when I meet people, right away, I'm like energetically like picking up on their energy, like what's going on there. Even if they tell me like, let's say they're like a very light energy, for example, like let's say they're a Libra, or like let's say they're a Gemini, but I still can pick up on like darkness energy or something. Like right away my mind's like, okay, where do they have Scorpio in their charts? Because I'm picking up on this like scorpionic energy. Or let's say it's Piscean, like maybe they're like very dreamy. So it's this, that's kind of how it works. So now like literally everybody that I meet basically becomes just like an energetic like part of my repertoire, right? Like I'm always like picking up on the energy within people. That's really what it is. And then obviously I ask people, right? I'm like, okay, what's your chart? What's going on? So I'm always like literally, like I swear it's like a 24/7 type of thing. Like I'm always thinking in that way, right? So same thing, if I'm watching something on TV, I see a certain person or like a public figure and I'm like, okay, like what's their natal chart? And then I look up their natal chart. Or like, let's say someone has a certain look, right? Like in their eyes or whatever. I'm like, okay, what's going on like with their natal chart? It's this, right? So that's kind of how I learned it, right? You can learn it anywhere, but for me, that's how I built on it, is really, really what that is. Because everything else, like if you think about it, like it can be really dry. Because like, again, you have to learn 12 of everything. You have to learn absolutely, like it's a lot of information is really, really what that is. And I can see people getting overwhelmed as well, like when they're learning it, because again, it's a lot. So again, taking it step by step, taking it day by day, and then like seeing how you can make those connections in your everyday life. And like, you know, again, same thing. Like now when I meet people, even if they're telling me something, like let's say recently someone was telling me, oh, I had a kid, and I right away was like, okay, were you 27? And right away I'm like, okay, Saturn return. Okay, this person probably has either Saturn in the 5th, Saturn in the 4th. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's kind of how it works. Is really what it is. So that's just me. I don't know if that could work for everybody, but yeah, you can learn astrology anywhere, books, literally anywhere. You said you do the same thing, you pick up on energy. So that's okay. So that's another thing too. That's another thing too, because I already was psychic and intuitive. So for me, it was a matter of finding the tool to streamline my energy in, if that makes sense, right? So I used to do tarot. I used to do oracle cards. Like I used to do that on my YouTube channel, like tarot readings, oracle card readings. But it's like when you do tarot and when you do oracle, it's still very open energetically. Like that's the only way that I can explain it. Like you can look at it as like, this is a great way to confirm your intuition. It's a great way to like start, like you can look at it as like training wheels in a way. And some people always use it like it's fine. Do you know what I mean? But it's like when you're doing just like a general reading, for example, like it's you can pick up on anything, like it's very vast, right? For me, astrology is like streamlined on one thing, if that makes sense, right? So again, you have even like in the old scriptures, like different religions even talked about how to, you know, get into that meditative state, which kind of helps you get the psychic information. So it's like for some people, it would be like staring in one spot for an extended period of time. And because you're staring in that spot, you're kind of going out of focus and you're getting the information. So it's just like a matter of figuring out like how are you going to get the information, right? And like also not all astrologers are psychic is really what that is. But like you'll see a lot of the time if someone is psychic or intuitive, like it helps them like hone in on the energy more. So it's like if you're able to focus on something, like let's say even like if you're interested in doing predictions, then you'd have to also do research is really what that is, right? Like if you're doing predictive type of astrology, you'd have to look back and see what was happening in like 1940 when we had like the last alignment and so on and so forth. So it's this. So it depends. Like different people are going to find like their different way of getting the information. So it's really, really this. It's a form of divination is really, really, really what that is. You said you can't pick up on tarot. You have to read the descriptions all the time when you do it and then make a guess on what that could mean. Some people only look at the cards. Exactly. It's this. And then also, not only that, some people are just tarot readers as well. So there's that aspect of it as well. Like it's like some people who do tarot can be psychic, but also you can just be a tarot reader and be like experienced in terms of like reading the cards and looking at like what the actual message means. So it depends, you know what I mean? Even in terms of tarot, like the way that I used to look at it and read it was like, it probably wouldn't again be by the book, if that makes sense. Like all of the cards have their meanings, yes, but like I would be looking at everything. Like let's say there was a pattern, for example, like when I pulled like, you know, certain cards, and let's say it was like all yellow, like all the cards were yellow, for example, right away I would be like, okay, solar plexus, right? So something's going on with this person's solar plexus chakra. And like I'm clairsentient, so I would pick up on like the feeling more so behind certain things. So it's this. And like ultimately, eventually, like in terms of like the psychic and intuitive world, like if you can eventually like wean yourself off of everything, like you can look at it as like training wheels, right? It's like it's helping you get in tune with your psychic intuition. Now, another thing also that I wanted to tell you guys was also back in the day when I used to do Reiki. When I used to do Reiki, that also helped me get in tune with my intuition as well. So I did that for a period of time as well. I had a Reiki practice while I was teaching yoga as well. So it was a mobile yoga business, and then I had my Reiki practice as well. And that's actually where I fell in love with teaching, because I used to teach people about the chakras basically to get clients to come into like the wellness space, because it was a wellness space. There were so many of us that were like contractors working there kind of thing. You basically could like work out of that space is really what that was. So that just kind of fell into my lap, but like, did it really fall into my lap? Like everything's alignment at the end of the day. So I took the opportunity when it came, and it was really interesting because it's like prior to that, like I just did Reiki on individuals, like friends and family and so on and so forth. So like I started working there, and you know, it's interesting because what we did when we first like, or when the place first opened up, was like we were offering like 15-minute like sessions, and I had a person come through, and it was so interesting because it was when I was going through their solar plexus chakra, I heard the word, see, now I can't remember if I heard marriage or divorce, like it was one of those two words, and then I said it to them, and they were like, oh my gosh, like I'm trying to stay in the country because I'm trying to get married or whatever. So they were like, I felt like, again, like there's their power being pulled away from them, and then I heard that, do you know what I mean? So that helped me strengthen my gifts as well, you know, and this is how other people can do it as well. So sometimes, like, even if you receive information, you're like, okay, that's random, like where's that coming from? The more that you like speak it, you know, and then you get the confirmation, it's like you trust it in more, right? And then more and more and more, and then just like it's a muscle is really what that is, like anything else. So that was really, really fun. Hey, Scorpio realm, how are you doing? You said you do Reiki too, and it really opens you up. That's awesome. Honestly, okay, one of you guys here is saying the cards are a demonic pagan practice. Everything depends on your intuition, or like on your intention at the end of the day is really what that is. It all depends on your intention. I feel like, okay, this is also another theory that I have. Sometimes some people in like the psychic world end up depending on just like the certain type of practice that they have as like their financial income. And it's like maybe it started off as something good, but then it turns into like, because at the end of the day, we're still on an earth plane is really what that is. Like, as much as we can talk about money's not this, money's this, whatever, right? Like the belief systems around money, it's still a material plane, you know? So sometimes people go into the world of like, you know, they have this gift, and like maybe it starts off with them wanting to help people, but then it's like, it's kind of like it's like the money wound slash like an entity almost, right? What that like hooks into the person, where it's like maybe the person needs the money for survival, and it's like because they're depending on it, they're putting this desperate energy into it, and because it's going into like the lower chakras, it's basically like turning into a dark energy. So like all these things, like I don't think any of them are dark. It depends what the person is doing with the thing. That's the way that I see it, and it depends on the person's energetic standpoint and where they're coming from. So it's like if you're coming out of the lower chakras and you're just dependent on that, and you have a money wound, and it's like it can be any type of money wound, maybe it's a survival type of wound, or like you're just depending on that for your income, well then in that case you have to then be realistic with yourself, and you have to be like, okay, well then I can't do this as my only source of income. I have to do something else. Do you know what I mean? To keep the energy here like energetically clear, if that makes sense, right? That's the way that I see it. I hope that makes sense. So it's like, I don't know, people just like need to be realistic with themselves at the end of the day. It's like, if you're doing it and it's like you're not dependent on it financially, and like, you know, you're really coming from like a pure intention, then you're not going to go into the darker energies. It depends where you're at in terms of the chakras. And it's like, if there's any wounds, like sometimes like the greedy wound hooks into people, right? Like if you look at like even these days, right? Like let's say like when people talk about like certain cults maybe, right? And maybe this is my Mercury in Libra, because I can see things from all perspectives. Maybe it started off as like something that was divine or like good, right? But then maybe the people got greedy and they wanted more money, and they wanted more money, and then they're like siphoning off of people and they're taking, so it depends. It depends on the people. So it's like the tools themselves don't mean anything. It's a piece of paper with a picture on it. Like if we're gonna be real, right? So okay, Scorpio realm, I'm gonna go back up. Let's see. Before I get there, one of you guys asked me, do I get information through music too? Yes. So there's certain type of music, oh my gosh, it's so interesting, because I swear sometimes before I do these lives, I swear I can hear you guys already on the astral, because I was saying to you guys in my head, because I was listening to classical music before I did this live, right? And like for me, classical music like just elevates my vibration, like the instruments and just like specific types of just like, here's the thing, again, even with music, right? Like you can have certain songs that are meditation songs, but they might not necessarily be elevating your vibration, right? So it depends. It depends on the music. But it's like, again, if it's something that elevates your vibration, yeah, it'll take you into those higher realms. And it's like when you're in the higher realms, it's all about getting into the higher realms is really what that is. If you want to pull psychic information, that's the way that I see it. Okay. So it's like whatever elevates your vibration for you is going to help you get the psychic information, whether that is exercising and then you feel really good after, whether that's listening to music, whether that is cooking, whether that is actually meditating, like sitting down and meditating, because some people like sit down and meditate for like hours and they don't get any information. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's another misconception as well. It's about elevating your vibration. And sometimes it's movement too, right? Sometimes for some people you have to walk because the energy is coming through. So it really, really depends. So let's see what Scorpio realm set up here. Yay, Lorraine, I'm glad that you like my analysis about energy. Hey, Scorpio realm. You said, how do you bring your physical soul energies together? You said Vedic, Scorpio. I hope this is what your question was. You said Vedic, Scorpio, Sun. Thanks so much for the likes, you guys, and the shares and the subscribes. Okay, so you said Vedic, Scorpio, Sun, Gemini, Moon, Draconic, Leo, Sun, Pisces, Moon. I'm not sure. I don't know too much about the soul energies yet. When I do find out, I will let you know. Wine over Wisdom says, your mom is a triple Scorpio, Sun, Moon, Rising. You attract a bunch of rare triples. Your best friend forever is a triple Virgo. They're pretty chill. They don't fit the shadow traits, probably because of the balance. Okay, I'm curious to know if you have the Sun, Moon, Rising in the same sign. Is it all in the first house or is it all in the 12th house if you're still in the realm? What's the best career for a midheaven in Capricorn, Cancer, Sun, Aries, Moon, and Aries Ascendant? You have to work for yourself with that energy in there, okay? Either work for yourself or work in some form of like management type of role, okay? Where you are working either with a team, because Aries actually really good with a team. Aries is good at starting something, right? So they're the initiators of the idea. So they're good in terms of working with a team where they're the manager. That's what I mean. Not like them in a group, okay? Them as the manager. So it's like, if they think of an idea, they're not necessarily the best at like continuing it because they get bored, right? They like move on to the next thing. So Aries, let's say if they think of an idea, you work with a team, you delegate, okay? You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Like that's how the Aries energy is good. So in terms of like, again, management, team lead, manager, or like you have your own business with a Capricorn midheaven, climbing the higher echelons of society. Cancer Sun is nice. It'll give you a little bit more of like a softer energy because sometimes Capricorn and like, sometimes Capricorn can be intimidating and sometimes Aries can be a little bit like, you know, like really like intense. So the Cancer Sun is gonna soften it all up for you a little bit. What do I think is best career? I'm going like from the bottom up. I'm going back up now. Okay, so this is for Nicole. You said, what is the best career for Sun in Pisces, Moon in Aquarius, Ascendant in Scorpio, and Midheaven is in Leo? Okay, so Sun is in Pisces, Moon is in Aquarius, Ascendant is in Scorpio, Midheaven is in Leo. I mean, that energy could be interested in being on a screen, acting, modeling with the Ascendant and Scorpio, Midheaven, and Leo. Like you have to be creative and you have to be seen creatively. Now, this can manifest in other realms as well. Like it could be a stage, maybe you're doing theater, maybe you're doing like content. But yes, that's the overall idea, okay, with the Ascendant and Scorpio, because they got the eyes, right? So like they're gonna be good at modeling, like being on that screen, right? Because like they're able to portray an image to the world, right? That at least for now is really interesting for other people, okay? So, and then Pisces Sun is gonna make you dreamy. So something in this realm, maybe even modeling or just like, you know, even when people do like magazines, you know, something like this, like something creative in this realm could be interesting for you. Scorpio Sun, Taurus Rising, Virgo Moon. Okay, you were guessing what my energy was. I get Virgo a lot, actually. Virgo is my 12th house, so I think that's why sometimes you guys pick up on it. And also, like when I'm talking about like information, the Virgo energy comes through. So it's this. You're welcome. Jupiter and Aries in the second house, so you can make money through the self. Jupiter and Aries can make money through like anything with the physical body. So it could be retail, it could be construction, it could be dance, it could be athletics, it could be sports. It could be anything in this realm, like where you're moving, right? So you need to be moving. Like Aries needs to move. Aries can't be in one spot, okay? They need to be able to move around. And if you're not able to move around, like let's say you work a 9 to 5 where you're sitting at a desk all day, then you need to go to the gym, okay? Because otherwise, there's that energy coming through again that I was talking about way at the beginning, where it's like, you know, sometimes that fire energy, I was talking about it for Scorpio more so in terms of their sexual energy, but also for fire, their energy, like if it doesn't have an outlet, can turn into aggression as well. So it's this. Second house is a wall placement, Jupiter in the second house. Rising is in Pisces, Sun is in Sagittarius, Moon is in Taurus. Please explain Jupiter in the 12th house in Aquarius. Okay, so please explain Jupiter in the 12th house in Aquarius. Okay, so here's another thing with 12th house energies. The way that I see it also is like you're closing out that cycle in this lifetime. You weren't able to complete it in a past life. So Jupiter in the 12th house is something to do with money and how you make money, okay? You weren't able to complete it in a past life. You come through in this lifetime to close out that cycle in this lifetime, okay? That's Jupiter. Maybe it's also something like, maybe it has some sort of spiritual knowledge or belief systems or like religious beliefs, like whatever it was, okay? Maybe you weren't able to complete it in a past life for whatever reason, because it's the 12th house. You're completing it again in this lifetime if you choose to, okay? Jupiter in Aquarius. I haven't seen too many people with Jupiter in Aquarius, actually. I actually haven't seen too many of you guys with Jupiter in Aquarius, but overall, the area that's being expanded for you is going to be anything to do with the mind, anything to do with your futuristic ideas, maybe tech, innovation. You could be interested in working in these realms as well. So it's this, okay, with the Jupiter in Aquarius. Fashion sometimes for them as well. Sun and Sag, you're probably going to be like very fiery, okay, especially if you have your Mercury also in Sagittarius, like, you know, that Sagittarius energy is fire, right? So it's very charismatic. Like, people might be interested in what you're saying. It can go into preaching though. Keep that in mind as well. Moon is in Taurus. Moon in Taurus is going to slow you down a little bit. Okay. That Moon in Taurus energy. So Moon in Taurus is like, you know, the way that I see them is like 4 feet, right? It's not 2 feet. Like, it's literally like the bull, like slowly getting to the end goal. But you know, money's on your mind. It's all about materialism. It's all about the gains, the wealth, these types of things, okay, with that Moon in Taurus. So like, that's going to be a motivational factor for you. Like, Moon in Taurus people want to have nice things. They want to have luxurious experiences. They like the brand name, you know, flexing in this way. Okay, how to control your Scorpio moon. In what way? In what way would you like to control your Scorpio moon? Because, you know, a healed, or I don't want to say healed, but like a more evolved, I guess, Scorpio moon is able to keep their emotions under control. And it's like, rarely when they're evolved are you going to see them have a reaction, right? Which is a good thing and a bad thing, because it's like they can have the poker face going on, right? In terms of the emotional world and you picking up on everything, you know, staying away from substances is probably going to be helpful as well if you're a Scorpio moon, because you're picking up on energy all the time and like pulling your power back to you, like not putting it on other people. Okay, I'm going back to the bottom now. Oh my gosh, you said you were a model for 7 years. There it is. I literally kept saying model because psychically, this is what I mean. This is what I was saying to you guys in terms of like psychic impressions, right? You have to say everything, right? That comes through. So I was psychically seeing like magazines is really what I was seeing. So yeah, I'm glad that that was confirmed. Thank you. Yes, Scorpio realm, absolutely. You said great expression of demonic manifestation, very Libra-like. Well, it is this, right? Like, it literally is this. Now, the thing is, you know, there's a lot of dark people down here and a lot of people with alternate intentions, right? Like, and shady intentions. So I can see how people can like take advantage sometimes of these like gifts that they have, or just like, you know, take it into the shadow sense. And I can see then why there is this aversion as well, because it's like a lot of the time, if you look at like psychics, right, maybe in other places, like sometimes these people like are tricksters, right? They're trying to manipulate people. Or even these days, like, what am I even saying? Even these days, like, you know, the people who like message you in your DMs and they're gonna be like, oh, this is happening and I need you to send me like a random person. It's like, oh, I read your aura. And it's like, what? Like, you know what I mean? So I get it. Like, there's people who are doing shady things out there and it can go into the dark energy. Absolutely. That's why you need to develop discernment. Like, that's what everyone's going to need going forward. They're going to need the discernment to know like who is there with good intentions, who's there with bad intentions. Unfortunately, is what that is. Like, I had a friend back in the day who basically like, she went to a psychic. This is way, way back in the day, like before I even started doing any of this work. So she went to a psychic, and basically what ended up happening was like the psychic said to her like, oh, you have to buy this $1,000 candle from me or this is going to happen and you're not allowed to say anything to anyone. Like, you know what I mean? So when they do things like this, like this is why you need to have discernment. So thankfully she said something to one of her family members, and like then they realized that it was a scam, right? So you said you're surely on your first chakra since 16. Which chakra are you on? You said your life has been upside down since you were 16, you're 27. Yeah, it's honestly, this earth plane is just like, it's just chaotic down here, like energetically. Like, there's always something happening. Like, there's always people coming through trying to cause chaos, do the most. Like, You said tarot would only make sense if you had multiple people deciphering in a person at once. Otherwise, there's no discernible truth but yourself. It depends. Honestly, it depends on the person. Some people are gifted. This is what I mean. You need to have discernment. Pluto opposite midheaven, how does it affect your career? So your Pluto's in the 4th house. See, that also gives you the undertone of having a Scorpio moon. So when you guys have anything happening in your 4th house and it's opposing your midheaven, that means there's something here that needs to be resolved within the home for your midheaven to be activated, okay? So you guys can look at midheaven as like the top of the chart. You are working your way toward the midheaven, but you can't get to the midheaven if you don't resolve the preceding stuff, right? So all ready for everybody, right? All ready for everybody, regardless, like whether they have 4 house placements or not, has this opposition. 4 house, 10th house, okay? I have a video on that. I have it on, I'm trying to think of which playlist that I have it in. Anyways, it's on my YouTube channel, and I think it's in my miscellaneous playlist. I'm pretty sure it's in there, and it's called the importance of the 4th house. I was talking about it in there. So your 4th house is your home, right? It's your foundations. It's like your belief systems. So it's like when you have this opposition taking place, like there's something that took place where maybe there's a belief system within the home that could be holding you back from, let's say, your career and your public life. So when you have Pluto in here, like there's probably a lot of shadow work that has to take place, or just like things that you have to purge from the home, or like belief systems because it's in your 4th house. So keep that in mind, right? So you'll have to clear through these things energetically, purge them, get them out of your system, like in whatever way, shape, or form you can do that, right? Maybe writing, whatever it is, right? Maybe you go home, maybe you go on a forest and you scream, like whatever, or into a pillow, you scream, like whatever helps you get it out of your system. Maybe you go to the gym, you know, you get out of your system, right? You purge it, okay, in whatever way, shape, or form that takes place, and then you'll be able to activate that 10th house, okay? That's kind of how it works. Hey everyone, welcome. What do I think about Pluto? Okay, what do I think about natal Neptune in Aquarius? Exactly opposite of part of fortune in Leo, okay? So your Neptune, so here's the thing, anywhere like Neptune touches in your chart, it's blurring that area, okay? Is really what that is. So when it's part of fortune is like ways that you can make money, okay? How you can activate abundance. So Neptune, right, is blurring now this area for you. Maybe you don't see it clearly, and it's opposing, right? So it's like the fortune in Leo can make money through, let's say, like you being creative, you being on a stage, so on and so forth. Neptune is like blurring this, like you might not necessarily see this clearly. Let's say you get an idea, like, oh my gosh, I have this great idea to put on this like creative show or whatever it is, and then Neptune is like blurring it. Oh, you shouldn't do it, or you can do it tomorrow, or like you have time. That's how Neptune works. Like it blurs it. It doesn't allow you to see it clearly. You said, how are Cancers different from Pisces? You've always gone along with Pisces people. Okay, so all the water signs are different in their own way. So that would probably have to be a video of its own for the different energies. I think I talked about it once way back on one of my lives, but Cancer. So Cancer is about the home. It's about the upbringing. It's about the mother. It's about, a lot of the time, Cancerian people have like abandonment wounds connected to them. I mean, everybody does, I guess, in their own way, but for Cancer, it's around the home and it's around the family. And I found with them, it's like emotional abandonment more so. So that's Cancer, okay? They're nurturing, they're feminine in this way. They're creative. All the water signs are creative in their own way. Pisces is like in the ethers, is really what that is. Also, Cancers can be like very clairsentient, right? Pisces, for example, can also be clairsentient, but maybe they can be clairvoyant as well. So they're creative in their own way. Like Pisces is like the romantic energy is really what that is, like romanticizing life, like seeing everything like, oh my gosh, like this is so exciting, and like getting this new idea and doing all these types of things, right? Cancer's a little bit more chill energetically. Like they might just want to stay at home. It's like the crab, right? So that's what it is, but it's water. So it's trining, right? So it's going to basically, it's basically going to, like, you're going to get along with these people is really, really what that is, because it's a positive aspect. Like you're both water energy. Sag risings, what do I notice about Sag risings? Okay, so Sag rising, your descendant is in, your descendant's going to be in Gemini. Descendant is in Gemini. So Sag rising, you guys, what I've noticed with you guys a lot of the time, yes, you guys have like the developed quad. So you guys might be into like sports, for example, a lot of Sag risings. I've seen a lot of Sag risings in boxing also, actually. So it depends, like Sag rising or Sag moon in boxing as well. Like Sag is charismatic in their own way, is really, really what that is. Now it depends, is your 12th house in Scorpio? Is it not in Scorpio? It depends, like there's so much to say, right? Because if you don't have an interception and then your 12th house is in Scorpio, well, that changes the story a little bit, right? Because it's like you come off Sagittarius, where it's like, I'm here to have fun, I'm here to just like, you know, here for a good time, not a long time. But the 12th house, if it's in Scorpio, well, then it's like there's this part of you that's like deep, right? And like seeking like this connection with individuals. So it's interesting. You want to look at the whole chart as well. You said, would I be open to the idea of making a video series about how different signs or energies from the signs interact with each other to become best friends forever, how they need to communicate with each other and when they have disagreements, also how different signs or energies from the signs would need to communicate with each other, disagreement without triggering each other. Can you give me an example of the two signs maybe that you're speaking about? Sag competitive and over the top. Yeah, Sag is super competitive. Oh my gosh, all of the fire signs, I was just having this conversation with someone the other day. All of the fire signs are competitive in their own way. They're really, really intense. Cause like, I don't know if you guys ever have like played a board game with a fire sign or any type of game with a fire sign. They're just so intense and they do not like to lose. Oh my gosh, they don't like to lose. Sometimes like, depends on the sign. I can't say like, I've only experienced this like with specific people that are fire signs, so I can't say that it's all of them, but it's like, it's really interesting to see because it's like when they're playing the game and if they're losing, like they're really upset. So that will translate into different areas of their life. Yeah, so now, okay, so in terms of YouTube, what they're doing now, just so you guys understand, like the vertical types of chats, when they're like this, like the phone, it can pop up on anybody's feed, just like TikTok, right? So anyone's coming in and out of the chat. If you're doing it horizontal, then it's like, it's just the people, I guess, that are on your page. So when it's vertical, anyone can come through, which is fine. They get a little bit of the sprinkling of the light and then they're on their way to go do their shadow work. Let's see what else you guys saying in here. You said totally feeling it since the last 4 years of your life. You're surprised how good you got at guessing certain energies of people. For example, finding out that Jennifer Lawrence is a Leo Sag mix. Yeah, exactly. You start to pick up on it. So this is what I talk about too. So this is another thing too. Okay, in terms of like people when they're on their demonic tangents and then when they say astrology is demonic, right? So all the religions are going to be like astrology is demonic, right? Don't follow astrology, blah, 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 X, Y, Z, okay? So here is what I have to say about that, okay? When you meet people, right? When you meet people and they don't know about astrology, okay? They have no idea about it. They're just going about their everyday life. You will see that they are playing out unconsciously their charts already, okay? They're already playing it out unconsciously, and that's usually people who are unaware. So they're unconsciously playing out their charts, right? So with that being said, right? If you are someone who controls this whole energetic place, right? I'm speaking in code here, right? If you were the one who was in control, wouldn't it make sense like for you to continue being in control to like not want people to learn about that? You know what I mean? Like, wouldn't that just make sense? And then obviously like for people to not learn about it, you will give it like a negative connotation. So going back to my example, so people are unconsciously playing their charts out already, right? So it's like if you're unconsciously playing your chart out, do you actually have free will? This is my question. This has been the ultimate question, but if you're unconsciously playing your chart out, then technically if you think about it, and like people maybe don't want to accept this, but like you're unconsciously playing your chart out, that means you don't have free will because you're actually energetically being operated by something else, right? So to break out of that thing, right, that everyone is controlled by energetically, okay, which is Saturn, which is why I talk about Saturn, right, because it's Saturn transits if you think about it, but it's all transits, everything, right, it's all underneath the energetic structure. You have to learn about it, you have to educate yourself, and then you have to break out of it, right? That's the way that I see it. That's how I see it, okay? So it's really this, because it's like, if you have a certain chart, right, it's like you have a certain level of free will, but it's only within that chart. Is really what that is, and then what's happening with everything else taking place. So it's this. So knowledge is power at the end of the day, right? And ignorance is bliss, I guess, for certain people. I don't know, maybe. Saturn return and maturity is definitely real. You met your wife when you were 28 and went to law school at 32. You think this is something people overlook in reading their charts? Absolutely. So yes, I feel like, and it's interesting because back in the day, in terms of like spiritual initiates and like spiritual mystery schools and like mystics, I guess you can say, like they weren't able to teach people anything until they were the age of 40, right? Or older, because that's when they deemed, even during that time, that you went through enough Saturn transits to have enough life experience to be a quote unquote spiritual teacher, right? This is way back in the day, right? So it's like, even just like from life experience, like even if you look at psychology, right? Like your prefrontal cortex develops around the age of 25, right? 25, 26. So it's like up until that point, you're oblivious is really what that is. You're just having a good time, which is fine, right? Like just enjoy the time. But it's like when you like get older and you go through enough of these Saturn transits, like you start to actually develop a maturity, and that's why Saturn is maturity. That's why Saturn is time. You know what I mean? So certain like major life decisions probably shouldn't take place until you've matured is really what that is. So that's all I have to say about that. Saturn controls the world. Yes. And actually somebody, I think this person was new, they commented on one of my videos today, and they, in their own words, said the same thing. And I'm like, finally, like people are picking up on this, or at least we all think the same, or like similarly enough. I was actually thinking of like a t-shirt where it says Saturn controls your life. But I was like, is that too Scorpio energy? Like, are people ready for that level of like bluntness? But it's this Saturn is the controller. So Saturn, it's interesting, right? If we talk about Saturn now, Saturn, okay, this is the way that I see it. If you look at those images, and every ancient civilization picked up on this, this is why they were all into astrology. And that's another thing too, right? Wouldn't you, again, if you were the operator of this thing, right, and you wanted to remain in power, wouldn't you want everybody to think that the thing that you're using to stay in your position is a joke, right? Anyways, I'm just gonna leave that there. So with that being said, and I have to speak in code, it is what it is. So you guys are gonna have to read between the lines. With that being said, right, if you look at every ancient civilization, they all talk about the energetic structure that's around this plane. Okay, I think we're in a dimension. This is a dimension, right? But around this dimension is gridded energetically. And this energetic grid, okay, that all of the ancient civilizations are talking about is Saturn operating the structure, is really, really what that is. That's why when people paint those like psychedelic pictures, they always put like the eyes, right? Is really what that is, like the eyes that are always watching, okay? Because that's what's happening on the astral plane. It's this, and that is Saturn, okay? That's karma. Saturn is karma, right? And then in the tarot, that's the devil card. And why is it the devil card? I'm just putting the pieces together, okay? So these are just my own opinions from my own perspective and just things that I've read and thought about. You said, Barbara, if we're drawn to certain places / topics, is that because it relates to our past life and our soul tries to push us toward that direction? Okay, I think you asked me this recently, but okay, this is how it works energetically. And it's just because when I see the name, just like photographic memory coming through. But anyways, okay, so if you're drawn to a certain place, right, a few things can take place. If you're being pulled to it, right, like you're being pulled to a certain place, maybe there's certain things you have to clear there, for example. Maybe there's people you have to meet. Maybe there's certain experiences you have to have. Maybe you're going to that place to get like energy activated within you. Maybe you're clearing something from a past life. Maybe you have like a past life connection with that place energetically. Depends. It's going to be different for different people, because different people are doing different things in their current lifetime, right? It's this, right? Sometimes you go to a place, maybe it's really high vibrational, you get some like energy. I'm trying to like stay away from the new age terms, I really am. But like, let's say you're just like getting high vibrational energy from that place, okay? And you bring that energy back to maybe where you live, and now you're spreading that energy around you. It's this, maybe you go to a different place, it switches up the vibes for you when you switch up your schedule, right? If you're constantly in the same routine all the time, right? And it's like monotonous, and it's like Monday I do this, Wednesday I do this, Thursday, you know, and it's always the same, nothing new can come through, and you go actually into a hypnotic state, which is what the whole world has been in up until this point. Okay, so it's like when you're in a hypnotic state, which is meditation in the shadow, right? By doing the same thing all the time, right? It's almost like robotic. You're always doing the same thing over and over again. First of all, nothing new can come through. Like sometimes people are like, oh, I never meet new people. Or like some people like who are interested in meeting like their partners in like real life. Oh, I never meet anyone out when I'm out and about. Well, it's like you're probably not doing anything to switch up your vibes. Are you going to a class? Maybe are you joining some sort of group? Like maybe you're into basketball, join the basketball group. It's this, right? So that's what it is. So if you have a pull to go somewhere, you're being pulled for a reason, as long as it's coming out of the heart space. Like you're gonna have to discern that for yourself, right? If it's coming out of the heart space and it's like pulling you in that direction, right? And it's this, clearing something, meeting people, experiences, switching up the vibes, getting maybe new ideas. Because it's like, here's the thing too, okay? So we're all like sentient and energetic, right? Everyone is clairsentient, I think, in one way, shape, or form. But some people are just like not paying attention, right? So they don't notice. But it's like when you go to a certain place, sometimes you merge to the energy of that place and like you shift like your own timeline. Like you'll see that in astrocartography, right? Like for you, sometimes, let's say like you go to your Neptune line, maybe you're gonna go and have like a more spiritual experience there, and like maybe you get some sort of activations and ideas in that place that you wouldn't be able to get in like another place. Maybe let's say where you are on your Mars line or whatever. Maybe you're not on any of the lines. Maybe it's just like the void, you know? So, oh my gosh, Brazil was so awesome. Brazil was so awesome. It was so amazing. I'm excited to visit it again sometime in the future. It was like a wild card, like last minute place that I went to. I loved it so much. I loved it for the nature. It was just so amazing. The energy was so high vibrational and the nature was just like so great. Like I love places that are just like lush, you know, just like so much nature. And it's like, I was in Rio de Janeiro, so it's like, they have like the ocean and then you have the mountains and then you have the jungle. It was just like, wow. I was just like literally blown away. It was such a beautiful place. Like I love places that have like a lot of nature. So like I have nothing but positive things to say. You said yes, Saturnian plane. Exactly. So people who are 12th house people or like watery people, like Scorpio people, like you guys are going to know what I'm talking about, because it's like, if you sit down and like, I'm not trying to be discouraging for people, like people are going to have the veil come off their eyes eventually. It is what it is, right? Like the Neptunian veil, like we've been in a very Neptunian time. So a lot of people, like there's been a lot of illusions, right? But it's like when people are trying to teach you about like law of attraction or manifestation this and manifestation that, like all that stuff is blowing up like now, right? Especially with social media. But it's like, if you sit down and you try to manifest something, right? If it's not in alignment with your natal chart, you might struggle to bring it through, or if it's not a certain transit that's taking place or whatever it is. And the question is, why is that, right? I mean, I know why, but I mean, like, I'm like asking it rhetorically for people to think. Do you know what I mean? So that's the whole thing here. So it's operated by Saturn. So it's like, you only have a little bit of leeway. So the question is, and this is what I want everyone to think about, okay? How do you break out of Saturn? How do you break out of the Saturnian plane? That's what everyone needs to come to conclude, right? So how do you break free from it? You have to elevate out of it, right? You have to break out of the Saturnian structure is really what that is. Because up until that point, and this is what I mean when I was talking about the unconscious people, like people who are unconscious are unconsciously playing out their whole astrology. And it's more so them, right? And they're usually the ones that are going to be like, oh, astrology is this, astrology is that. And it's like, but you are fully playing it out. Like literally go to any person. And if you sit down long enough with them and you talk to them about their natal charts, they're going to be like, how do you know this about me? Because it's already in there. Do you know what I mean? So it's easy for certain, like you hear it in songs, you hear it in scriptures when they're like, oh, it's already determined. It's already like so on and so forth. But then you have the other end of the spectrum, right? Where they're like, oh, you can manifest what you want. We're co-creators. We're this, we're that. No, there's an energetic overlay. Like there's an energetic and it's interesting. You'll hear that also a lot of the time when people talk about the glass ceiling, right? Like it's all there. Like they're literally telling you. Yes, Saturn or Satan. Do we have to accept the karma of Saturn or refuse the karma? Okay, I wrote about that too. Okay, oh my gosh. See, you guys are literally, you guys are so smart. You guys are so smart. All of you, this is why we vibe. This is why we vibe. This is what I mean. Literally, when I wrote that, okay, I wrote it on my threads, and I think I wrote it on the YouTube channel as well. I literally compared Saturn, Satan, okay? And it's interesting because, again, in the tarot, it's the devil card, okay? And all of it is connected because Saturn is Capricorn, Capricorn is the devil card, right? So it's this, and if you look at the devil card, it's all about the lower chakras being pulled down, right? Being pulled down into the lower chakras, back more and more into the material plane. So it's interesting because it's like, I don't know, I like to listen to different perspectives, and I've listened to a lot of people over the years and a lot of like explanations and a lot of things. But the more that I learn astrology, the more that I see that there's literally an energetic structure that we need to break out of is really what that is. So learning it is how you break out of it. That's how I see it. Learning it, right? You need to learn what has this like energetic structure imposed on you, right? So also when you look at an astrology chart, right, you'll see your gifts in there. So you'll see a few things. You'll see what you naturally already have like on that soul level, okay? But you'll also see, and I don't know if you guys heard the thing fall, but confirmation for me at least, okay? So you will see what you have as like your natural gifts, right? Like certain placements, right? Will tell you what your natural gifts are, and then you'll see the challenges, okay? And the challenges are what this structure, some people might call it the matrix, like whatever terms you guys want to use, right? Some people might say the simula, so shin, okay? Hopefully you guys can put the words together for that one. So whatever you guys want to call it, right? There's something here that's operating, right? Like this structure is being operated by astrology and numerology and numbers overall. It's actually mathematical, okay? It's actually mathematical, like this plane that we're currently in. It's really what's interesting here, okay? So with that being said, to break out of it, it's a few things. You want to raise the vibration, right? So like some of the new age concepts like are close, but some of them are really far off. Like some of them are just like too in the ethers in terms of too much of the crown chakra into like la la land, right? So it's like if you see it for what it is, okay, you will understand, right? And like to break out of it, you have to learn it. Like that's the only thing that I can explain. So when you come into this realm, right, you can kind of look at it as just like, I don't know how to explain it. Like everyone's getting coded in a way, right? So you come through with a code, with a specific code. So you have the gifts, but you also have the things that this matrix or like the energetic structure has imposed on you as well, right? So this is what I mean. Like when you see in your chart, you'll always attract a certain type of person, for example, right? You'll see that in your descendant. Let's say your descendant is in Taurus, okay? Your 7th house. You'll always attract that type of person into your life. And that has nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? It's what's been imposed on you when you came into this place. You said, what are types of intelligence that I'm referring to when I say that Mercury and Scorpio is wicked smart? They're emotionally intelligent. They're always like 10 steps ahead. John Doe says, or you could respect his law, Saturn. Yeah, there's that part of it too. So there's that part of it too. Absolutely. You can play the game. So that's the thing. Okay, so something that somebody said on one of my lives recently that I really, really liked, or actually this was like last year at this point, but the times go by so fast. Anyways, so we were talking about the same concept, right? And I was basically saying how this is a game. We're literally in a game, right? And because it's a game, there's certain rules in the game, right? And the person was basically saying how like when you enter the game, the astrology, like your natal chart, is like the chess piece that you get, right? Like it's your energetic structure. So you have to see how can you mold into the game. So sometimes to get out of the game, and actually what's interesting, because then I kept thinking about that, and this is how my claircognizance works. So I kept thinking about that, and I was like, I love how they said that. Like I was like, it's so smart, you know. I was like, it's so true. It's literally like a game, and then you get the chess piece, and like you have to play with what you got energetically, right? Like you have to work with what you have, right? And I kept thinking about it, and then it just came through, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's literally like the movie Jumanji. Have any of you guys watched that movie? I literally love that movie. Okay, such a good movie. So Jumanji, okay. Basically, the idea of that movie, it's a game. And once you enter the game, you have to fully play the game to get out of the game, right? So it literally goes with what you're saying, you know? Sometimes you just have to play the game and you have to learn the game. Maybe there is no breaking the energetic structure. Although I do feel like more so intuitively, I feel like we're here to actually energetically break it or break out of it at least. Jumanji, yay, I'm so glad some of you guys know that. To a great extent, break out of the Saturn cycle by simply letting it happen. That's how it happened to me. You said Saturn is no more enemy than any planet. Okay, great. Oops. Okay, Tara says, you want to move to Kauai, sorry if I butcher that. Then you said, but your 10th house stellium moves to the 12th house and your Pluto in Scorpio moves to the midheaven. Do I think you'll be ungrounded there? I mean, you might be, but if you're meant to be, I mean, is that an issue? Here's the thing in terms of being ungrounded. I mean, this is how I see crown chakra and root chakra. If you have the money and you have the funds, you can be ungrounded all you want. Do you know what I mean? You can be in your crown chakra all day. That's how the two work together, you know? So would that be an issue? Do you know what I mean? But like, if you're too much in the crown, then you might struggle to be like in the reality and in the root chakra. So it kind of depends on your situation. It's going to be different from person to person. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You said exactly, except those who are in control. Yes. What else are you guys saying here? You said our house Scorpio. Okay, hold on one second. Because I asked you way back. You said like how Sagittarius wants to put everything out in the open and be loud compared to Scorpios who want to be a private between who they like and reserved from the crowd, or how Sagittarius sees Scorpio as weak and pathetic for being dependent and sad instead of being happy and dependent. And your original question was, how can you have to go way back up here? You were saying, how can the two communicate with each other? I mean, honestly, it's awareness at the end of the day. Everything comes, in my opinion, everything comes back down to awareness, right? So it's like, if you are aware of yourself, you can communicate what your needs are. And if you're aware of another person, then you can accept them for how they are too. Do you know what I mean? So it's like in your example with Scorpio and Sag, it's interesting actually. Some people who have Scorpio and Sag in their natal charts, like those are intense people. Like those people can go far. Scorpio and Sag combinations. They can also go into like the shadow where it's like the energy absolutely can be dangerous as well. Okay. But that's really what it is. It's awareness, right? And awareness of yourself and awareness of the other person. This is what I mean too when I talk about like we're going more into like an Aquarian time, right? So when we go into more like an Aquarian energy, it's going to be more like that, right? Like you're you and I'm me and I accept you for you. And it's like, you know, we don't really need anything from each other. Another thing, I'm going to leave you guys with this too to think about, okay? Another thing that I've been thinking about too is like how much of relationships are just people looking for ego validation. I'm going to leave that with you guys as well. I'm just going to go back up to see if I missed anybody. You said, is your life path and numerology in your name because of your astrology or the other way around? It's all part of the code. Okay, so that's another thing too that I've been recently thinking about too. So in terms of like your code, right? You have your natal chart, you have your birth date number, you have your life path number, and you have your name numerology as well. Some people, you'll see that, okay? And also another thing that I was thinking about too. So in some cultures, when they go through a baptism, it's interesting, I was thinking about this today too. Some cultures, they go through a baptism, okay? And when they go through the baptism, they take on another name. And I was just thinking about, these are just ideas, like I'm just throwing ideas out there. But I was thinking about that today, and I was like, it's interesting how like, you go through this like baptism process, right? And then you get another name, okay? So now you have a different name than what maybe your birth name was. And then I was thinking about how in other cultures and religions, they have the concept of like when you're born, you're actually born with like, they call it a jinn or just like an attachment essentially. Like, you know how they say that there's like, now this is just the way that I've interpreted it, okay? So you know how they say that like you have an angel on your shoulder and a devil on your shoulder, right? So in some of the religious like beliefs, they say that when you're born with like the basically like the dark aspect of you as well, right? And then that's why like certain religions don't celebrate birthdays, because when you're singing, you're singing to the dark aspect of you, right? So today I was thinking, and I was like, you know, when you go through the baptism, right? And you like get the other name, and that's now a different culture or religion, right? So like again, I explore like everything out here, okay? So I share with you guys what I explore. So then I was thinking, and I was like, okay, when you get the new name, I was like, it's interesting because it's almost like when you go through the baptism and you get the new name, yes, part of it is taking on the new identity, but I think part of it has something to do with this like dark aspect where it's like the energy doesn't go on you anymore. Like it's like a diversion of the energy. I hope that makes sense. So that being said, you will see this when, let's say, celebrities or like musicians or whoever, they go through this whole process where they get a new name, right? I find that interesting, right? Because the energy is being focused toward the new identity, the new persona, the new name. So yes, your name also is going to carry a vibration as well. So if you change your name, then you're also energetically changing maybe your path, or maybe it's this thing that I'm telling you guys about, this whole like energetic switcheroo that I was saying just now in terms of like the energy being focused on another person. You're welcome. You say you're Capricorn stellium, always surprised how you love to be Saturnian in the group and take responsibility. I love it. You said you think ego validation is true only because your twin or soulmate is the only one who will get where you're coming from. Okay. So this is just like my own realization just from existing here. So I was thinking today, and like this is bouncing back off of the ego validation thing, okay? This is how I got to that train of thought. So I was thinking, and I was like, okay, you know, again, Neptunian plane, right? So from young, you're shown certain TV shows, and again, it's this whole soulmate concept and like looking for the one and the ideal person, and like everything is revolved around that, right? So I was thinking about that, and I was like, you know, when you evolve, right, you eventually realize that you're not looking for that in another person. You're actually looking for your connection to the divine and to the creator, right? So I was thinking about that. And that's how I got eventually to the ego validation concept, because I was like, you know, a lot of the time, let's say you're in a dynamic, right? And like, let's say you've like integrated, or like you're still integrating, maybe you have an abandonment wound or something of that sort. And it's like, you'll hear a lot of the time people talk about relationships. They're like, oh, I didn't really like the person. I like the attention they were giving me, right? So that's where I kind of went with that train of thought. I was like, okay, is it just ego validation that everyone's seeking? But then also, if we were to go into like philosophies, I'm taking you guys super into the crown tonight, so you're up here with me, okay? If we were to go super into the philosophies, like it's that whole concept that like another person is literally validating your existence, right? But if you understand all of this, okay, if you understand all of this, and that like that's what's happening, right? Everything changes, everything becomes easier, is really what it is. Nicole says, you've noticed a lot of Capricorns being all about marriage and family, and then walking away from the partner, and then being all about being an awesome single parent. Any thoughts on this? Oh, that's really interesting. I've never heard that, but I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like that's part of the collective shift. It's actually so interesting you bring that up, because first of all, to answer the Capricorn part, like Capricorn's all about tradition, right? So that could be the reason that they're all about like marriage and family. And like Capricorn and Cancer, like the two energies are looking for stability in different ways. But it's like, okay, so for example, Cancer is looking for stability through family, and then they're gonna go off and work and like, you know, go into the world, right? Capricorn is looking for stability through finances, and then they're gonna go off and like look for the family, right? So what's interesting is I actually wrote this on my thread. So sometimes I just write all these things that come through on my thread. So if you guys are interested, go on my threads. It's BARBARAJSC. So what I wrote about was, the other day I was thinking about it, and I was like, as we're moving into the Aquarian time, right? The detachment energy, and just like, you know, more of an individualistic type of time, we're moving away from tradition, right? And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about how like we're moving away from the concept of like the perfect image of a family, right? Which is Capricorn energy. So sometimes Capricorn can be about the image in that way, right? Because it looks a certain way on the outside. But we're going into Aquarius now, which is authenticity. So it's interesting you say that, because you're saying like now people are like, in this like train of thought, you're saying that they're all about being an awesome single parent. Like, I think that's just like the collective shift, right? They're coming out of just like not being authentic or doing things maybe for the image. I don't think that has anything to do with the sign. I think that's like a collective thing that's taking place. You said we're all inherently narcissistic. That's why biological twins do everything together. It's like looking at yourself from another perspective. Oh, that's so interesting about the biological twins. I never thought about that before. But yes, exactly. So it's exactly that. The plane is narcissistic, and everybody is. Everyone has a dose of narcissism within them. And it's interesting you bring that up. Oh my gosh. I love my subscribers, because we're all just like on the same vibe. So I made a video, maybe it's 2 years now, but it's under my metaphysical playlist, and it was called Love Dating a Narcissist, okay? So it was this theory that I was just telling you guys, but a little bit like now maybe it's like evolved to this, what I told you guys today, but it was, the idea of that was there, where I was talking about like, you know, the Greek mythology myth where they talk about Narcissus, like literally the like person who was looking in the reflection, and then he fell in love with his reflection, right? So I was talking about like relationships, and yeah, watch that video if you guys are interested in learning like more about that. Just like, again, theories, these are just theories, right? So I was saying like as an idea, I don't remember exactly word for word, but it's this whole concept that I was saying to you guys today too, right? Where it's like you're falling in love with yourself through another person, right? But my new added layer, like my new like revamped, like added energy on top of that, or like thought process, is that through the other person, you're actually thinking God. And I think that's everyone's ultimate like pursuit, is really what's happening. And mind you, like I didn't have a religious upbringing, okay? So it's not coming from that place. Like this is just from just like gnosis, I guess you can say, like Gnosticism. You guys are so funny. You said you feel like people can't be by themselves. That's why they all, yeah, that's another issue. Okay, so that's another thing. So I talk about that in my chakra series, the abandonment wound, the 3 collective wounds. Okay, so that's another thing that I've thought about too. So in terms of the 3 collective wounds, one of the wounds is the abandonment wound, right? So the abandonment wound is also rooted in this whole validation, like needing to be like confirmed that you're existing, right? Like that you're real in a way, you know? So it's like after you heal that and you work on that, and you also understand that a lot of things are revolving around that. Like that's how people are controlled, is through their abandonment wound. That's how you're controlled maybe in relationships or like by family or by society as a whole, is the abandonment wound. And it's like also just like the whole concept of like not fitting in with the rest of the group, right? Like that comes from like back in the day, right? Back in the day, they used to like basically like humiliate people, right? In front of the whole group, right? That's how people, I guess, have this like deep wound within them, right? And now these days, I guess it's playing out more so in relationships. So it's like, you need to work on these things, like everybody, right? You need to work on that within yourself, because it's like, then you can be controlled. Any wound that you have, then you can be controlled through this, right? And especially if we look at it as an energetic structure, right? Energetically, right? If you have a wound, like things are always going to come through targeted at that wound. The same type of person, same type of character, same type of like tactics and these types of things. So okay, guys, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for being here. If you guys want your own natal chart reading or progress natal chart reading, that information for that is going to be in the description box below. Thank you for your likes, shares, and subscribes, and I hope you all have a beautiful rest of your evening.